we want to be AI ready.
Yeah.
What are the first three things you'd ask them to do with their information landscape?
Every company has islands of information.
True.
Right? I mean, that islands of information or data, how is it like fully integrated? Or is it like, the data is completely siloed? Because AI without data is like nothing. Identify which portion of the supply chain is where they want to deploy AI first, rather than having going everywhere in one go.
Welcome to Discover Dialogues podcast, powered by TechDogs. The world of business and technology is evolving at breakneck speed. AI breakthroughs, digital transformation, and game-changing innovations are reshaping industries every day. On this show, we dive into the trends, ideas, and strategies driving the future. We're sitting down with industry leaders, innovators, and disruptors to bring you fresh insights, bold perspectives, and real conversations that matter. So plug in, tune in, and let's discover what's next.
Today on the show, we are joined by Manoj Nagpal, VP, Professional Services, and MD. With over 3 decades in enterprise technology, Manoj has led teams across sales, professional services, and customer success, guiding organizations from traditional systems to cloud and AI while staying focused on real business outcomes. His perspective stands out for connecting long-term technology change with enterprise risk, execution, and people leadership. In this episode, Manoj shares why incremental modernization works, how data readiness shapes AI outcomes, and why empathy and listening remain essential leadership skills in times of constant change. Let's dive in. Great. Welcome to another episode of TechDogs Discover Dialogues. Manoj, it's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Vikram. Thank you for hosting me.
Great. So, Manoj, before we dive into today's topics, I'd love to kind of step back and look at your journey. I think you've spent, decades in technology, professional services, leadership, large scale transformations as well. And you've probably seen how organizations evolve, not just through technology, but through people, through systems and also long-term decisions that leaders have to take. So let's kind of start, with that journey first. Uh, would love to understand your professional journey and the experiences that shaped you.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. So I think it's been little more than 3 decades, 32 years. And yes, you're right. I've seen a lot of transformations, both professional and personal. And I would say that I used to be a hardware sort of a person who was hasn't had no knowledge about software, only to the extent that I knew that there are something called microprocessors in the software world, which are underneath in the computer hardware, and there's some programming which is done in those microprocessors. But then I think I started as a hardware engineer or an engineer in general electronics engineer, and graduated to a salesperson very quickly because I realized that my best skill is in front of customers, is in front of people. I think I can probably present value proposition to customers, and I can connect with people much better. So in that hardware journey, I did have a small initial startup, which I think started in my final year of education itself. I didn't scale it up because there were lack of funds. We didn't have VCs at that point of time. But definitely, it gave me a great learning experience in terms of the hardware industry, how the Nehru Place market in New Delhi works, how we assemble computers, and how do we make a sale of those computers and all that. It was a great journey for me, learning experience, and then move to the software part of it, and the professional services. I mean, I've seen, and from the software on-prem to cloud, and then now to AI. So yes, I've seen that journey. At OpenText, I've been here for 26 years, a little more than 26 years. And it's been a great journey here at OpenText as well. Alongside my personal journey also advanced when I it's we always in our friend circle joke about it, is when I got engaged with OpenText in 1999, I also got engaged on a personal level to my wife, and then that journey continues on both sides. Yeah.
And looking back, which phase of your journey do you think reshaped, how you think about leading, and leading through uncertainty, perhaps even.
Yeah, definitely. See, I would say the phase from 1993 to 1999, I must say that I was changing jobs quite frequently. I think I changed 4 companies, and I was like kind of unsettled. Where is my sweet spot? I mean, is it really sales? Is it marketing? Is it business development? Is it training? Because I did try my hands-on training as well, and I was kind of struggling in that space, I would say. Eventually, I think 1990 onwards, I did find my sweet spot. I think my sweet spot was around one common element, which was in front of customers. In front of customers, doing a consultative sales or doing a consultative, services work. I think that was my sweet spot, which connected me to software industry for the first time, starting from 1999 onwards. And it also gave me that customer value proposition, how we can make the success happen through the digital transformation programs. So that was, I would say, a moment for me where I transformed from a little bit of a confused teenager or a young person to a little more of a mature person who is very clear in his head what he wants to do. And that also a shift from a hardware networking sort of industry to a 100% software industry. So that was a big change and a huge transformation moment for me.
In my opinion, I think, having heard you, I think what stands out for me really is that your journey kind of really connects the commercial reality, which is the sales, to the execution discipline that is required in software. And I'm sure that philosophy is kind of something that you carry out, or carry through every day, in fact.
Yes, yes, I do.
And I think that's what's happening in this space as well, right, today. If you really look at what's happening today, I think most enterprises are actually operating in dual realities. uh, at one point, I think they're trying to modernize, and I think post AI, it's just about AI. But I think on the other hand, they're also kind of responsible for keeping those complex, mission critical systems running without disruption. um, and and that's where I think the whole tension starts coming into play, right? Because there's a lot of conversations about transformation, and I think people and business both are now looking up at their legacy environments, and they're saying, okay, what do we do? uh, how do you modernize without disrupting operations? And in your opinion, what are some of the approaches that have actually worked well in?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'll give you an example of the company when I joined in back in 1999. We used to work on mainframes. We had a system called EDI Express, value added network, which was all on mainframes. And then we graduated into um, you know different kind of client server systems, and then from the on-prem software to the SaaS models. We did not do this in the span of 1 year or 2 years. It was incremental. So the message I'm trying to highlight is it was incremental. It was with portions of the business. We did not just pick up everything and say, okay, here is a plan. We're going to replace everything overnight, or legacy systems you're no longer required, and you go off. And then now we're going to bring in a new system. It's not something which we did overnight, and nobody should do it overnight, is my advice. It has to be incremental. It has to be uh, business flow by business flow. I mean, there could be, if you have 6 or 7 departments in your company, and you could look at first the HR side of the house or the finance side of the house and say that um, for these systems we are still going to keep the data in the legacy systems. What we're going to change is maybe the user interface of the legacy system. We'll first modernize the presentation layer. The presentation layer becomes more modern. It has an AI interface now. Behind the scene, we are going to have a technical integration with the legacy system so that the data still resides there, but it is able to connect. We need to have that intelligent integration systems back in the play, and go department by department, do incrementally. As you see the return of investment coming in from phase one, move to phase two, move to phase three. So I would say incremental, go by within this phase itself, go by layer by layer, workflow by flow, rather than replacing the whole entire workflow. So that will be my advice, that so legacy systems will eventually get replaced, but they don't have to be replaced right away. They don't have to be replaced overnight. It will happen. It will go on its own if you do it in a more natural, incremental way. That will be my advice, and I think that's how we have done for many of our customers.
But don't leaders come up to you and say, incremental modernization or transformation is disciplined, but it's slow?
Yes, they do. I would not deny that, they do. And I think that's where we have to probably break that slow word into a sort of when we say slow, are we saying that slow in terms of just the perception of it, or slow in terms of that you had a business value you were expecting from this, let's say, IT transformation, and that business value now is slow? Once we define the business problem in front of us, that we want to be faster in the market in terms of reaching out to our suppliers, as an example, or we want to make sure that our dealers, if there is a dealer network, they're able to place an order, or exchange documents with us in a near real time. Once we understand the definition of fast, we can achieve that definition of fast, or what they want to be faster, in the same incremental manner I'm suggesting. Because half of the problem, people are just looking at a very perception of the whole problem, that okay, no, I don't like this incremental method, I want it to be, I want to change things overnight. That's a very, I would say, technology driven thought process, that I just don't like this legacy system, I want it to be fast, I don't want it to take 5 years. But if you say that, where do you want to be fast? What business problem are you trying to solve? Once you understand that, more of an outcome based plan, if you make that outcome based plan, and relate them with the benefits you are going to get, whether fast in which area, you will be able to give that benefit to your customers in the same manner which I'm suggesting, and which will be more disciplined.
No, obviously, I mean, you at OpenAI have been at the heart of enterprise transformations, and information management for decades. How do you think the view has changed, or how do you think it has evolved? Digital transformation in that context.
I think digital transformation in the old times, it used to be, okay, something is manual, let's digitize it. Something is on paper, let's just make sure it is made electronic, it's digitally done. See, that was the mindset. But today, digital transformation is about how it can become a strategic asset for the company, how it is more of a strategic differentiation versus the competition, how we connect people, processes, workflows, systems, infrastructure, all in one nice architecture flow. That is what digital transformation is in today's world. And of course, with an AI layer running on top of it, with a very clean integrated data sets, that's digital transformation. But previously, it used to be, okay, automation here, automation there, in a very disparate ways, or just converting some manual methods, or a manual, paper, making it paperless, sort of a thing. It used to be more technical, I would say. Now it has become more strategic.
So let's assume for a second a CIO came to you today and said, "Listen, we want to be AI ready.
Yeah.
What are the first three things you'd ask them to do with their information landscape?"
Yeah, I think first thing, I mean, I would like to understand is how the information of the data is how it is. I mean, every company has islands of information, right? I mean, that islands of information or data, how is it, like fully integrated? Is it like working in a seamless manner, or is it like, the data is, completely siloed, one department system doesn't talk to another department system, you have duplication of datas, in various places. If that will be my first question, because many a times any corporation, any company wanting to do AI, they ignore the data element, because AI without data is like nothing. Talking about, especially if you talk about agentic AI. So data layer, it's important to understand the data layer. Second is, um, it's important to understand which portions of, the company workflow do they want to change their customer experience. The customer services group they want to deploy AI into, and that's where they feel, is the real business pain point. Or they feel that, I think the most benefit or the most pain point area, business pain point area for them is, the warehouse management of it, right? So it's important to identify which portion of the their supply chain is where they want to deploy AI first. It's more to identify that, rather than having going everywhere in one go. That will be my second point. And third would be, in terms of processes and governance around it, right? How even without AI today, how are their process and governance around data security, and depending on the industry they are in, if they are in, let's say, healthcare, if they are in pharmaceuticals, if they are in banking, the requirements around security governance could be very different. So that will be my top three things which I would like to understand from the CIO before we jump into this any of the AI initiatives.
So the reason I want to kind of talk a little more about this is because what's happening is, as organizations are modernizing themselves, or as modernization is progressing, um, and in the last couple of years, because of AI now coming into the foray, it's I think it's almost like AI is not something that you're going to experiment with anymore. It's now becoming embedded into how information is managed, how decisions are made, and how operations are run. uh, and to that specific point, uh, I think, if and or rather, as AI is moving into connected workflows, obviously the leadership roles, the capabilities are going to change. Uh, and what, in your opinion, what are some of those uh, you know things that they will need, enterprises will need?
I think I would say, as I said, I'll go back to the same one largest point from my side will be data. um, the data is paramount. They would need to ensure that data is clean. Their data is, at least they know that what are the sources of the data and where are those duplications. So the data layer needs to be sorted, if they want to get the true benefit of the agentic AI or the connected workflows, because there is no point of deploying an AI, at the or having the AI models tweaked to, how they're working, when the bottom data layer is too siloed and it's not giving the right value. Because then what will happen is the output, the AI will generate will not be accurate, because we have seen, many of our customers experimenting with AI, saying and getting frustrated that, okay, it seems like it is giving us, probably, faulty outputs of what we were, versus what we were trying to do. And then now they're deploying manpower to correct those outputs of AI, right? Because the learning, because at the end of the day, the models need to be trained, and the training is done based on data, right? So I would say the first and foremost important thing is the data. And the second thing I would say is, identifying a business outcome from the AI journey, associated with your, entire supply chain, very very clearly is important. Very very clearly, because otherwise, it will become a just a proof of concept, a POC, or technically, because at the end of the day, because when I talk about AI for enterprises, I'm talking about agentic AI, because the predictive AI or the generative AI is, or the chat GPTs of the world, they are probably good for the normal B2C use, where I can go in and say that, okay, hey, I have this, can you do this for me? Or I can go and ask my horoscope for the next few weeks. I mean, I can, as a individual, I can use AI in many different ways, and maybe the accuracy of the data, even if it is 70%, it doesn't really matter to me, because I'm doing it for more for a little bit of improvement. If the image is generated from some elements, it's not really impacting, because I'm not running a business supply chain. But when we talk about enterprise AI, things are different, and that's where the agentic AI becomes important. That's where the data becomes important. That's where the workflows, which we want to focus on, and the outcomes we want from this becomes important.
And do you think that enterprises still have, this misconception about uh, AI? Um, and maybe perhaps what are also the gaps that you're seeing in the market today?
See, there is a lot of hype in the market that AI is going to come and going to solve everything for me. AI is, yeah, there's a lot of hype. The reality is that it is not going to deliver to the exact hype which is there in the market. Okay. Similar way, AI is not going to replace all the jobs in the market as well. AI is going to remove some of the jobs, but at the same time, it's creating new jobs, right? The governance model where the humans come into the picture, where they check, they are the decision makers. Even within agentic AI workflow, humans are the decision makers. They are checking things. That the governance layer of human is not going to go away. So what I'm trying to highlight is that there is this misconception about AI is going to solve everything for me. No, no, it's not. Yes, it is going to make the whole enterprise information management smarter. It is going to make the whole enterprise information management more productive, more. It is going to definitely improve my business outcomes. It will be a huge differentiator. If I don't do AI, probably and my competition does, I'll be definitely be losing out on the competitive edge. It's for sure, it is there, but not to the hype that everybody expects. That's one. Second is, as I said, AI alone is not sufficient. AI alone is not sufficient in bringing that transformation what we expect from, even to delivering, not to the hype, but to the real business outcomes. AI tool alone is not sufficient. You can pick up any models out there, whether it is llama models or any models. You can customize whichever way you want, but those models, training, all that, there's a whole architecture which is required. Along with that, the data layer architecture, the security architecture, all that is required to uh, make it worthwhile in terms of business outcomes.
And so I think so far what we've really talked is, the inside view, what's happening internally. How do you enterprise adapt? How do they modernize? How do they leverage AI? But there is also outside world due to this, right? Because what's happening is, I think customers today have become more informed and also less patient. And I think for whatever reasons, we are moving to a world which is far more, outcome driven, if that is the word that I was to use. Uh, and This shift in expectations is obviously, influencing the way services or maybe solutions or products are being delivered. How is this shift influencing things?
Yeah, I think very good point. So I would say, as you rightly said, the customer are expecting predictable outcomes, and they are no longer interested in knowing, is my project delivered on time? They're not. That's not good enough anymore. Did the project, achieve the predicted outcome? Number one. Number two, during this whole journey of this, modernization or the transformation, um, how was the adoption of the services and solutions? How was the adoption of the solution which we are implementing? Are the users using it? Are they benefiting from it? So again, to your point, linked to the outcomes. So this shift in expectations is very natural in this AI ready world, and that is also going to that is going also going to put a very nice sort of a pressure on the services and this product industry. And what that means is we see a world called integrated services. So there's nothing called, okay, there's an implementation team who's doing implementation, they'll sign off, and then okay, now the customer success team will come in and they do ABCD, and then some support team will come and they will do X. No, at the customer, you as a company will have to march forward as an integrated services, have the customer success measurement defined upfront, have the adoption criteria defined upfront. We have to design our product and services upfront, keeping adoption in mind, keeping customer success KPIs in mind, and along the way show them that result. And I think the customers are not going to wait for 12 months for an implementation to complete. Then they look at the KPIs. You will have to break it down into 6 weeks, 8 weeks sort of sprints, and say, hey, this is how it, this mini phase one is done, and here is your outcome which we have delivered using this, and here is the KPI for it, here's the run phase for it, and the customer success team and the support team are all aligned. You can see this. Now we are moving to this mini phase two. So integrated services, showing them the outcome they expected in a mini iterative manners is what I think will happen as we move on. Of course, governed by automation in the mid of it, using AI, using data intelligence to do all that. Because I think when I say integrate, doesn't mean integration will happen, in a non-smart way. It has to be done with data intelligence. It has to be shown along with services team themselves will have to use AI in their how to deliver services. I give an example of OpenText. So we have developed something called Atomic Units Framework in professional services. We started this project a year back, and Atomic Units Framework is all about how we can actually deliver standard work modules to the customers without they worrying about the technical details of it. It is purely outcome based, fully automated work modules, and those work modules our sales team can pick up and sell to the customers that, okay, Mr. Customer, this is a work module which is focused on this outcome. You can buy this. Where if you buy this within 3 months, you will get this, and that is a complete integrated. So that's a complete automated, ready for a complete visibility for the customer. So that's something which we have developed a year back, and our initial pilots with few customers have been very successful.
I think it's a fantastic shift, right? So it's a shift from the whole entire delivery mindset that we've had, moving on to a lot more of value and accountability.
Yes, exactly. You're right. Absolutely.
Right. So, I mean, moving on, like technology can be an enabler or can enable transformations, but it's the people, it's the leadership that kind of determines whether it's going to sustain. And I think if there are long cycles of change, especially when you're going through transformations continuously, uh, it's the way the teams that are led that often make the biggest difference. And you've obviously led diverse teams through periods of change, continuous transformation, uh, and on both sides, right? So I'm sure it's happened internally for you as well, and when you're working with clients as well. And that's where I think the whole alignment and the trust becomes very important. So would love to understand, what some of the leadership practices that have kind of helped you build strong, high performing teams over the years.
Yeah, I would say I've used few, I would say, mantras throughout my life leadership journey, which is, can I build a set of leaders who can replace me any day, and can then those next level of leaders build another level, next level, who can replace them anytime. So what that means is that, can you create that trust circle In this is we are building a trust circle, number one. Number two, we are creating empowerment, right? So every 6 months, I would review that how many things come to me for review and approval. Do they really need to come to me? Why can't it be done by the next levels? And similarly, how many things go above me for review and approval? Why this needs to go to my boss? I can't take that, ownership and accountability and work with my boss? And similarly, so I think if we have that trust, empowerment, and I think the last piece I would say is, because the communication clarity is very important. While we can say so many times that, okay, I trust you, you trust me, but when it comes to the real life practical examples, you need to have a very clear communication, clear clarity in what is this. If, let's say, we're talking about a change, what is this change meant for? What is the benefit of this change? How will we know that this change is successful? Do we embrace this change ourselves before we go out and motivate others for that change, right? Do we really believe in that change? So that communication clarity has to be established, among our colleagues. So I think these are the few things which I have experimented. And then another guiding principle, which is more driven by my heart, is empathy. So while I have these three things which are probably a little bit mind driven, a trust can be a heart and mind together, but the one piece which is central to me is empathy. While you do this, there will be leaders and colleagues who will struggle. You need to treat them with empathy. You need to help them. So the empathy is central to, some of these things as well, because if you have empathy as a centerpiece in these things, you will actually make friends professionally, personally, for life. And the company will be a much better workplace for everyone.
And I completely agree. I think your emphasis on empathy, clarity, and trust, and also communication, I think is it's even more relevant today. When we are going this complex transformation across multiple things that are happening in our world. So from I think many leaders today. I think it's almost like change is not a phase. It's almost like a new normal. You just keep on changing. And I'm sure, looking back at your journey, there has been perhaps one principle that kind of stood by you, or you made sure that you never wavered from, to to be able to perhaps guide leaders how to approach change. And what perhaps is that one piece of advice that you would give leaders today, or people who are aspiring to be leaders today, to build teams that are adaptable to change, and you're being able to build resilient organizations?
See, I would say, again, one advice I would give to, everyone out there, and it's hard to make it, into one sentence, is be a strong listener. I would say being a strong listener, because when you look into someone's eyes and you're listening to the other person, you're giving your undivided attention to that person, to that meeting, to that forum. um, it's good to multitask. No, there's no doubt about it. But when you give your undivided attention to someone, and you listen to that person, or to that leader, if you do that, if you develop that habit before you react, it could be a bad news which is being explained. It could be anything. But if you have that, one good habit, that at least I have used that from the beginning. That has helped me a lot, because I have seen many colleagues of mine coming in and telling us that one thing, Manoj, we liked about you is, in every meeting, no matter how busy you are, when we are speaking, you are listening by looking into our eyes, and understanding each and everything, and then giving us the guidance, coaching we need. Because when you listen, you are able to, uh, understand. I mean, listening in a very undivided attention way, you're able to probably understand the emotions behind the person who is explaining things, understand the rationale behind it, and are able to craft your coaching accordingly. So that's one thing which helps in all the other things which I mentioned earlier about, creating that trust circle, creating that empowerment, and all that. So that's one thing which I would give advice to everyone out there, and that will also make the change transformation projects easier.
I think that's a fantastic and a very strong note to end on. I think it's practical, it's grounded, also very actionable. All right, so before we wrap up and before we let you go, what I want to do is I want to step away, from all the strategy and the technical and the leadership discussions that we've had. Would love to do a quick rapid fire round with you. Would love to know Manoj behind the title. So just instinctive answers, no overthinking. Just let me know when you're ready and we'll go for it.
Yeah, we'll go for it.
What's that one habit that has stayed with you throughout your entire career?
Listening.
If you weren't in technology services, what career path would you might have explored?
Teaching, because my parents were teachers and it comes in my blood, naturally, number one. Number two, teaching is one noble thing which, or teaching or coaching is one noble thing which one can give back to society.
One decision in your career that changed everything.
I think myself, moving from, it happened around the same time, me moving from hardware industry to software, me moving from India to Singapore, me getting my life partner during that same time. So there was, so that I would say is a series of decisions, but they're connected literally in a month's time.
What is that one place that you've traveled to that strangely felt like home?
Singapore. Singapore has been my home. My both my daughters are born there.
Oh, nice.
I spent 10 years in Singapore, and very clean, very
It's
structured,
yeah, it's a
and
very it's a
love the place.
fantastic. I've been there. I think just about twice, and every time I've been there, I just loved it. Right, are you a morning person or a late night person?
I am a late night person, but I do get up early morning as well. So, in other words, I'm saying is I'm telling my bad habit that I sleep less, which is not good.
Yeah.
Uh,
All right. What's your go-to comfort food?
Rajma chawal, being a
All right.
Punjabi.
Okay. Just a couple of more. Are you a mountain person or a beach person?
Beach person.
One skill set you think everyone should work on, no matter their role.
Skill. I think skill. I would say will go back to the same listening skill. If one can develop that listening skill, that will go a long way in my view.
And one last one. What's your personal definition of freedom?
The personal definition of freedom, I don't really define freedom in financial words. Personal definition of freedom is, am I able to spend time with family at ease, um, and I can today pack my bags, go to Canada, meet my daughters, both of them stay there, and then go on a holiday with my wife. I have that understanding in the office that I can say that, hey, don't disturb me for a week. Please manage the show while I'm away. That's freedom for me.
Absolutely. I think that's the very definition of freedom. Great, Manoj. Thank you so much for joining us today. And sharing your perspective. This brings us to the end of the episode today. I think I had a fantastic, insightful conversation with you, and we truly appreciate you taking the time to be a part of Tech Talk Discover Dialogues. Any parting words or thoughts?
No, Vikram, thank you. It has been my pleasure, and I'm happy to do more of these conversations. On different subjects, and I really enjoyed the conversation today. Thank you.
Thank you so much once again, Manoj. Really appreciate this.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe on YouTube, Instagram, or your favorite podcast app. Catch past episodes and more at techdogs.com. See you next time.